Good afternoon. Welcome to this afternoon's hybrid public comment hearing of the Energy Facilities Siting Board. Before I introduce myself, I will ask Kessel Johns to provide some instructions regarding Zoom.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's meeting. My name is Kessel John, and I'm with ERG, a contractor supporting the meeting. I'm going to start by providing some Zoom logistics for the people online. Zoom audio is available through your computer's speakers or by telephone. To switch to phone audio, you can click on the upward arrow next to audio options, select Switch to Phone Audio, and follow the instructions provided. Please use the chat box on Zoom for any technical difficulties. You can also email meetings@erg.com, and that email address will go in the chat shortly, and we'll troubleshoot things that come up. Closed captioning is auto-generated and is available by clicking on the CC icon in your Zoom control panel. If you don't see this immediately, click on the More, which is indicated by 3 dots and is usually to the right of the Zoom control panel. When you click on it, a little menu will pop up and closed captions should be on there. This hybrid public comment hearing is being live streamed and recorded. A video of the hearing will be available on the Energy Facility Siting Board YouTube channel after the hearing. That's it for now, so I'm going to turn it back over to Daniel.
Thank you, Kessel. My name is Daniel Kelleher. I am a presiding officer with the Energy Facilities Siting Board, specifically the siting division that supports the Energy Facilities Siting Board, and I will be conducting today's hearing. The Siting Board is the state agency responsible for reviewing proposals for large energy projects in Massachusetts, including the project before us today. To my left is Wayne Wong, Assistant Director of the Siting Division. Beyond him is Shannon Dennehy, a siting analyst, and to my right is Smitha Divakar, also an analyst with the Siting Division. Today's public comment hearing relates to petition from National Grid to the Siting Board with docket number EFSB 25-01/D.P.U 25-16. National Grid's petition proposes upgrades to an existing electrical transmission system that runs from Millbury to Buckland and passes through many towns along the way. I refer to National Grid as the company and to all the work that they propose to do in their petition as the project. Today's hearing marks the beginning of a formal state-level decision-making process in which the Siting Board will consider whether to approve the project. In reviewing the project, the Siting Board will determine, pursuant to General Laws Chapter 164, Sections 69J and 72, whether the project will serve the public convenience and be consistent with the public interest, and also whether the project will satisfy considerations of low cost, low environmental impact, and reliability. The primary purpose of today's public comment hearing is to gather input from the public that will help guide the Siting Board in its review of this project over the next several months. I will briefly describe National Grid's project proposal. National Grid proposes to replace 2 69 kilovolt transmission lines that run approximately 67 miles from Millbury, Massachusetts to Shelburne, Massachusetts. National Grid proposes to replace the 2 lines with 2 115 kilovolt lines. These lines run through Millbury, Auburn, Leicester, Spencer, East Brookfield, North Brookfield, West Brookfield, Ware, Belchertown, Pelham, Shutesbury, Leverett, Sunderland, Deerfield, Conway, and Shelburne, Massachusetts. National Grid also proposes to replace 3 tap lines, which are lines that connect to the main transmission line. and in doing so would replace both the tap lines themselves and also the supporting structures. These tap lines run through, in one case, Belchertown, in another, Shutesbury, and in the third case, Shelburne and Buckland. National Grid proposes to remove the existing structures for those tap lines as part of the project. In a few minutes, representatives for the company will share with you details about the project. I will then invite the public, both those in person and those on Zoom or telephone, to comment or ask questions. As appropriate, I may ask the company to respond to questions of the public. For those of you participating by Zoom or telephone, you will have an equal opportunity to see and hear everything said during this hearing and to offer comments and ask questions. In addition to having the opportunity today to provide oral comments, people may also participate in this proceeding by filing written comments. The deadline for filing written comments is 2 weeks from today, January 28th, 2026. To do that, please email your comments to me and others as specified in the notice, and there are copies of the notice on the table on that side of the room. I will just tell people that you can email me if you have any questions about this. My email address is daniel.w.kelleher@mass.gov. Daniel, D-A-N-I-E-L .w.kelleher, so that's all E's, one L, at mass, mass.gov, G-O-V. In addition to participating by filing written comments, you may ask to participate in this proceeding as either an intervener or a limited participant. An intervener has rights to ask discovery questions of the company, to present witnesses, to ask questions of witnesses testifying at the hearing, to file briefs and motions, and to appeal the decision of the siting board. A limited participant, on the other hand, has the right to receive filings made in this proceeding and file briefs with the siting board. A limited participant does not have the right to appeal a decision of the siting board. And more instructions regarding the qualifications for being an intervener or a limited participant are also in the notice at the back table. The deadline for requesting to participate in either of those ways is the same deadline as for filing written comments, January 28th. Again, if you have any questions, please email me at daniel.w.kelleher@mass.gov. We will now move to the company's presentation. After the company's presentation, I will open the floor to comments and questions from members of the public. Would legal counsel for the company please introduce yourself and present?
Good afternoon. My name is Catherine Cuthan. I am from the law firm of Keegan Werlin, and together with my co-counsel Cheryl Blaine and David Waterfall, who is senior counsel at National Grid, we represent National Grid in this proceeding. Thank you, Presiding Officer Kelleher and members of the Siting Board staff and members of the public who have come out this afternoon. We appreciate the opportunity to provide more information about our project. To that end, I'd like to introduce Rahul Shah, one of the project managers for this project.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rahul Shah. I'm with Project Manager at National Grid. I would like to thank the Siting Board staff for having us here today and the town of Deerfield for the setup here.
You're much taller than she
is. Sorry, is it better? All right. My name is Rahul Shah. I'm with Project Management at National Grid. I would like to thank on behalf of the project team and National Grid to the staff and the members of the community for being out here today. We look forward to hearing your comments, questions, and working with you when you have questions. With that, I would like to pass it to our transmission line consulting engineer, Kenneth Daw, and he'll walk us through the project oversight here. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ken Daw. I work for Fairwater Engineering. I'm a consultant to National Grid on this project, and I'd like to walk you through a summary of what it is that we're proposing to do on this project. Kessel, if you go to the next slide, please. So just a quick agenda of what we're going to talk about, a high-level overview, some of which may repeat what Mr. Kelleher just presented, an overview of where the project is in Massachusetts, what the existing condition looks like compared to what things will look like after the project is completed, some schedule information on when construction and project milestones will be taking place, as well as ways that we are reaching out to the community to inform everyone about what we're proposing, as well as ways that the public can contact the project team to provide input, ask questions, look for details about that. Next slide, please. So the E5 F6 are two 69 kilovolt transmission lines that, for the most part, share a single set of structures between the Millbury 5 substation in Millbury and the Deerfield 4 substation in Shelburne. There are 7 existing tap lines that branch off of the main line between there. 3 of them are included in the scope of this project. The tap to the Quabbin switch, the tap to Shutesbury, and the tap to Deerfield number 3. The main line and taps altogether total about 67 miles of transmission lines. They're held up by 711 existing structures, which are a mix of primarily lattice steel towers, tubular steel poles, and then some wood poles as well, running through quite a number of towns between Millbury and Shelburne. The line was originally built in the early 1900s, and since then we've had a number of projects over the years, but the most recent major project was in 2001, at which time we replaced some of the towers, replaced the conductor on most of the line, as well as added optical ground wire to the western part of the line between Deerfield and approximately the southern end of the Quabbin Reservoir. I'll go into what OPGW is a little later. Next slide, please. So this is a map of the project route. The red line is the route of the E5 F6 lines, with dots along the way showing the location of substations that connect to the line and where those taps to those substations are. Millbury at the right-hand eastern side, and then Deerfield at the northwest corner there. The Quabbin Reservoir being right in the middle quite prominently. Next slide, please. So the reasons for why we're delivering this project, the lines are over 100 years old. A lot of the assets are degraded and at the end of their life and need to be replaced. The methodologies that we use to design lines have advanced significantly in that time. So the new line as constructed will be designed to all of our current design codes and standards, which will improve the performance of the line to better withstand environmental conditions, to be able to carry more power, and the new structures and wires will be designed in accordance with that to make the line more resilient. Part of the reason why we're doing this, in addition to just the condition of the poles and wires out there, is these lines are some of the lines that experience some of the most frequent outages on the National Grid transmission system. In the 6 years between 2019 and 2024, we've experienced 70 outages combined on the two lines. At the top of the transmission structures, there's a grounded, non-energized wire. In the western part, that is a hybrid wire that contains fiber optics in the middle of it, so it serves the dual purpose of protecting the line from lightning, as well as providing communications. That extends from Deerfield 4 to about the bottom of the Quabbin Reservoir. Part of the project will replace the metallic wires that only serve to protect the line from lightning with additional OPGW that will serve both purposes of protecting the line from lightning as well as providing communications capability, which we will use for communications between substations for operating the transmission system, things like protective relays that detect when there's an outage or a fault condition, as well as security upgrades, any number of communications uses for operating the system day to day. Next slide, please. So the scope of the project consists of replacing all of the structures that support the line, the main line and those 3 taps. All the new structures will be tubular steel poles. 711 existing structures will all be replaced. 724 new structures will be replacing them. The line, as it currently stands, is designed to operate at its 69 kV operating voltage. The new line will be designed to our 115 kV design standards. This provides a few benefits. When the line continues to operate at 69 kV, which is our plan for the foreseeable future, we don't have a need identified or a time at which we anticipate operating the line at 115. By designing the line for 115 kV now, we achieve better lightning performance, higher clearances to ground so that the line is less susceptible to contact from trees and vegetation, as well as should that 115 kV operation be needed in the future, it avoids the need to come back and rebuild the line entirely all over again. We'll be installing those 2 OPGWs up at the top, which will better shield the line and protect it from lightning, which will help reduce outages that occur on the lines. To accomplish that, we'll be going through the route and improving access and performing vegetation management activities as part of that to be able to get in there and do that work. All of the construction is going to occur within our existing right-of-way. And by doing this, we're going to replace those assets that are, and the structures and wires and insulators that are at the end of their life, and replace them with new ones which will perform better, more reliably, fewer outages, be able to carry more power more efficiently, and those access improvements that we'll be building for construction will be of continued use to us going forward for forestry work, maintenance work, or responding to outages and emergencies along the line. The conductor that we're putting up has the capability to carry more power than the existing conductors. We're installing our standard conductor that we would use for 115 kV construction. That capacity is not for any particular identified need at this point. It's while we're rebuilding it, we're designing it to our standards, which will provide additional capacity that could be used to support future load growth, any renewable energy resources, electrification projects, things of that nature could all benefit from that capacity being available. And the larger wires also have lower resistance, which also then reduces line losses and allows the electricity to be transmitted more efficiently as well. Next slide, please. So here's just some pictures kind of illustrating the line. On the left here, we have a picture of the existing E5 F6 line lattice towers that are the predominant structure types along the line. The other 2 pictures to the right here are illustrative of the double circuit steel poles that will be replacing them. So just a difference in construction structure type. And the next slide, please. As part of the construction, the new structures will be in very similar locations to the existing structures, usually within 10 to 20 feet ahead or back along the line. And if you're looking towards the west under the line, looking towards the Deerfield end of the line, the center line of the structures will be shifted approximately 5 feet to the left. This is in order to enable us to build the line while only taking an outage on one side of the structure, on one circuit on the one side of the structure, to be able to keep the other circuit energized during construction while keeping the safe clearances that our workers need from the energized line. So the sequence of that would be that we would take an outage, we would remove the arms from one side of the existing structures, set the new structures with arms on one side, replace that conductor, and then come back and repeat the process on the other side of the structures, removing the balance of the towers, installing the second set of arms on the far side, and stringing the wires in through there. Next slide, please. So this is a high-level view of the milestones for the project. Permitting is ongoing, including this proceeding here. We anticipate completing permitting by 2027. Access route improvements and vegetation management and clearing will start in March of 2028. and running through the middle of 2034. And line construction proper, foundations, structures, wires, will start in the end of fall of 2028 and extend through 2035 along the 67 miles of the project. And at the end of the project, as we complete any given section, we will restore the right-of-way, remove any temporary access improvements, and restore everything back to the pre-work condition there, finishing that up also in 2035 after the end of the construction. Next slide, please. So this is a high-level view of some of the federal, state, and local permits that are required to build this project, starting with this proceeding before the siting board at the top, and then quite a long list of state, federal, and local permits that are required prior to construction here. Next slide. As far as outreach goes, we've been having community meetings with the public to explain what we're looking to do, answer questions, open houses. We've had communications with the local officials in the various towns that the line passes through. We've gone door to door and hanging door knocker cards. We have a website, www.cma to wmaenergy.com, that has an overview of the project, documents that support this filing, among other illustrative documents, a video that shows what we're proposing here. And we have ways for members of the public to contact us both by phone and by email as well. We plan to continue that communication to keep the public informed, as well as to receive any feedback and incorporate that as much as is feasible. We plan to continue speaking to abutters and to the public about when we'll be out doing the various activities to build this project. Next slide, please. So these are just some illustrative pictures of what it can look like during construction. Our first step to get out there would be vegetation management and access construction, both permanent and temporary. At the top, you see wooden swamp mats, which are what we typically use in wet areas to spread out the weight of equipment and avoid soil compaction and damage to the wetlands there. Setting erosion controls to avoid sedimentation runoff during rain events, crushed stone aprons at road crossings so that we don't track dirt out onto the roads. Broadly speaking, the way that the construction will proceed after we've got our access to get in there and start building the line proper, first step is going to be excavating and building our foundations, then coming back and setting structures on those foundations, and following that, pulling the new wires that'll be on top of those wires. And that'll involve a bunch of equipment, excavators, cranes to pick up the structures, bucket trucks for workers to get up there and hang insulators and wire on the structures. And then the bottom pictures are wire tensioners and pullers that are used at each end of a run of wire to install the wire on the structures. Next slide, please. Again, here's the contact info for the project engagement team to reach out with any questions, as well as the website, which will have info as an overview of the project. And I think that's the last slide of my presentation.
Thank you. Next, we will proceed with public comments about the project. We will start with public officials, beginning with federal, state, and then local officials who wish to be heard. Then we will proceed with members of the public who signed up, and then we will allow anyone else who volunteers today to speak and hasn't signed up. For all speakers, please give your name and address, spell your name, and speak slowly and clearly. A stenographer is transcribing all speakers tonight, this afternoon. To make his transcribing work easier, please speak deliberately and clearly. Please stop speaking if you see me raise my hand. If a company response to a comment or question asked is appropriate, I will ask the company to respond. Do we have any federal officials here present, either in person or on Zoom? Any state officials who would like to speak in person or, any local officials who would like to speak? Mr. De Chiara, please.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Michael De Chiara. It's D.E. capital C-H-I-A-R-A. I'm on the planning board in the town of Shutesbury and chair of the Energy and Climate Action Committee. I want to thank you all for coming out. It's good to see you in Western Mass again. And thank you to the town of Deerfield for this meeting room. Daniel, we're working on a 3-minute timeline, approximately?
Approximately.
Okay.
We're not going to hold you to it exactly.
Okay, I don't think it'll be that long. I think the way I would frame my approach is it's not an if, but it's a how. And in trying to understand how EFSB and D.P.U. fit into the permitting equation, what I understood is that you have to look at this in terms of is the project necessary and serves the public convenience and is consistent to the public interest, which is, I think you said at the outset. So that's how I'm looking at my responses. Part of that, from what I can tell from statute, is that you're allowed to and required to look at the environmental impacts as part of that public interest. And really, that's going to be the focus of my concern. One of the things it says in statute is the department is supposed to balance the interests of the general public against the local interests. In this case, I think it's a false dichotomy, being that it runs through 16 communities through Central and Western Mass. I would say local interests collectively become the general public interest, which is important. So it's not sort of a NIMBY, not in our town, although I will be speaking from my experience in Shutesbury. I've looked in detail at the draft environmental impact statement, and I appreciate National Grid came out. We had a meeting for Shutesbury, Pelham, Amherst, and Belchertown in December to review the project, and that was in preparation for a MEPA deadline. So I think they're aware of some of the issues. What I would ask the EFSB to consider, and it's part of your clean energy regulations, not part of this, and I know they're different, but nonetheless, is looking at the mitigation hierarchy, where what you want to do is avoid environmental damage first, if you can't avoid it, to minimize it, and then as a last step to mitigate it. Just looking at the DEIR, it seems like what often happens in situations like this and occurs is that there's a jump into mitigation. I think we can do more about the avoidance and minimization. So that's sort of my approach. And I will say some of how EFSB handles these large transmission projects is a little opaque to me. So I'm sort of applying my planning board hat to this, which is in the permitting, I'm hoping and assuming there's conditions to your approval to construct. And so I'm thinking that my comments are to inform conditions. The 4 areas of concern, the primary one for me is tree removal. So looking at the maps, there's 3 categories of tree removal. There's clear cutting, there's selective cutting, and there's pruning. Even though, as was stated, that the cutting will be within the right-of-way, in the right-of-way, there's a lot of indications, if you look at the keys on the maps, where they're allowed to clear cut. So effectively cutting straight lines, which I assume is convenient for construction and vehicles, not necessarily helpful for the environment. And the way I understand it is, once it's an approved plan, you can do everything up to that. And so one of the conditions would be to sort of reevaluate and say, where can we be doing selective cutting and pruning? At the December meeting, one of the National Grid representatives has said that it's really up to the arborists on the ground to make that determination. I think that's not the way it should be. I think it should be the state agencies who are sort of saying, this is the ceiling for what you can cut. Part of that, there's a few reasons for that. One is that excessive clear cutting will create erosion sedimentation, which especially in the locations which are near wetlands and water supplies is problematic. Excessive cutting also creates opportunities for invasive species, which part of this project is addressing climate change and the need for electrification. So we don't want to invite invasive species even more than we're going to. And then third, it's reducing carbon sequestration and storage, which runs counter to the Commonwealth's Forest's Climate Solutions initiative. So I think there's a lot of benefit to sort of re-looking at those. They're purple pink hatches as opposed to, I think, orange ones for selective cutting, but really sort of downgrading and saying, where can you just do selective cutting and avoid clear cutting, and making that clear so that people on the ground have parameters. The other three, real quick, for Shutesbury and Pelham and Amherst in particular, wetlands and waterways are really crucial. The waterways that go through Shutesbury and Pelham feed into the Atkins Reservoir, which is the drinking water supply for Amherst and UMass Amherst. So erosion, disruption with waterways there is huge. There's also a lot of wetlands in that area, so they go right through. And I think, although there's matting and precautions, again, if we can avoid and minimize, that would be better. Priority habitat there and endangered species, same thing. In the wetlands areas and those locations where it's going, they're identified priority habitat and endangered species. So really drilling down and saying, okay, they're noted by state agencies that these exist. How are we going to avoid and minimize? And then the last thing, which often is not mentioned, but in the rural context it's really important, is road integrity. So we had a site visit with National Grid in Shutesbury, I think the beginning of December. And, to do this work, you need massive machinery. And at best, the road, Pratt Corner Road, where this will happen, is a dirt road with maybe, in the best of conditions, 1.5 car lengths wide. In mud and runoff and rutting, it's maybe 1.25. There's no way that a school bus, which brings kids down from Shutesbury to Amherst, can get through, and emergency vehicles. There's no way you can do that. To their credit, the one representative from National Grid from Northern Maine who was there said, I think we need a transportation plan. And so I'd encourage you to say, you really need a transportation plan, because a lot of this, in my opinion, is, there's an Eastern Mass perspective that you can drive around the corner and get to where you want to go. In these towns, you can't drive around the corner. There's no alternative route. And so whether it's preventing the degradation of the dirt roads, making sure they're passable during and after construction is really critical. And the last thing in terms of the degradation is it will contribute to erosion and sedimentation, and those are exactly the places where the water supply is going to happen. So those are my comments. I appreciate, again, the opportunity to share, and good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other local officials? I also wondered if the company could speak just to the issue of the pruning, cutting of trees. Just kind of give an overview of its approach to that.
Full name is Erin Ruggiano, Ruggiano. I'm a vegetation management supervisor for National Grid. So I know in when we met out in December, good to see you again, the nomenclature I think was maybe a little confusing on our mapping. So inside the purple outline is actually the whole tree line. We're only going to be removing or pruning within the shaded hatched portion of that, which is not the whole thing. And if you look, it's hard on a map, you're looking at a 2D representation of a 3D actual topography. It's not clear cutting like we're clear cutting an entire acre or anything like that. We're going to be removing just what needs to be removed in order for us to put down safe construction work for the work to be done. We're looking at not just clearance of the actual construction project once it's completed, but also safety of our actual people constructing the project. And so we are looking at it from both a long-term maintenance and safety of the line and the safety of personnel working on the project during construction. And so that sometimes means that we do have to remove some trees along the edge. I've seen it several times where we sometimes want to preserve a tree, and so we preserve the trunk, but we also need to be looking at the roots. And so we really focus on arboricultural best management practices as well as tree risk assessment methodology to determine the risks associated with trees falling on the lines themselves, but also during construction. We don't want any trees falling on anybody while we're actually constructing the project as well, so we take that into consideration.
That's great, thank you. Sorry, are there any other local officials? Is James Gamache Here? Do you mind coming up to the microphone?
My name is James Gamache, G-A-M-A-C-H-E. I live in Shelburne, and excuse me, I'm not accustomed to public speaking. I have some questions or comments to be made. Sure, that better? I'm well aware with the grid people. I've worked with them quite a bit. I actually worked for the grid at one time. My concerns are a little different than most people here. I actually have 29 poles on my property. I am the outstanding pole owner on this whole run. So as you can see, my concerns are a little bit more than most that might have just one or two. Recently, some problems have come up, and I'm trying to get some answers. I am working with them, I will say that much, but behind my house, there's 6 poles where they've already started construction on a road behind my house. If we're here petitioning for a start of a project, first question is, it's already started behind my house. They've gotten access to my neighbor's property and came up behind my property and started construction and built a road, swamp paths, used material from my property on the right-of-way to build their road, came up with excavators with chipping hammers and chipped into the ledge to create a pathway through the ledge to make this road. I don't see how at any point that is a low impact or restorable afterwards. One question. If you want to address them one at a time, or if you want me to go through my list, is up to you. Sure. Second one is, now since I do own a substantial amount of property that these are all on, I have great concerns as to who's going to maintain this afterwards. I don't want to be stuck maintaining it during a storm, a hurricane, or a flood where there's excessive rainwater. It's on a steep embankment behind my house, which has already been questioned by me as to what's going to happen when there is a rain and mudslides, deterioration. They've constructed temporary stone walls to retain this road that they've constructed. I have serious concerns about future runoff, not necessarily this week, but maybe next week, the next hurricane. 2 storms in a row, we all know what happens, and when we see flooding on the news nowadays, it's pretty bad. They're going to be busy doing hurricane restoration and storm repair. Who's going to be at my house saving my property from the mudslides that might occur from the terrain that they've tore up or evolved or constructed on by digging on my property on a 45-degree angle to remove on the high side, to put that dirt on the low side? Well, you've now exposed all that terrain up above, susceptible to rain damage. Second one we've had questions on before, and I've yet to see any answer to this one yet. Bathroom facilities, well, this is all taking place. Behind my house is woods. It's a big backyard, I gotta say, with 29 poles on it. It's not accessible to any place. I've yet to see where bathroom facilities have been in place, and I've actually seen where the outcome from that has occurred. I'll just leave it at that. Again, like I said, my property being so big and containing so many poles on it, in my deed there's certain things written down that they're responsible for. One is the tree removal you've just talked about. I actually have the 1912 contract here in front of me. Actually, it's before that, 1909. There's handwritten clauses in my contract that says exactly how vegetation is to be taken care of and controlled via cordwood, stacked separate from trees. There is a list I can supply to you if you'd like to see as to how the trees will be removed per my discretion and what's to be done with the remainder there afterwards. My concern now is you're talking 29 poles, about a mile maybe, and if you go back a couple trees on either side, well, for that mile, that's thousands of trees. What do I do with them when they just leave them on my property? Is there rules that require them to, once they remove a tree, to remove it off my property, or I'm now stuck with thousands of trees, which has been their past practice, left on my property for me to deal with or go around, which I find unacceptable nowadays. I'd prefer to have them chipped or removed or the whole situation taken care of. I don't want to be taking care of their problem after they've left me. The last one is, who do I contact when I have a problem during storm duty, during this whole project? Like I said, they're going to be on my property for a substantial amount of time where other people have, like I said, 1, 2, 3 poles, maybe 4. They're going to be constructing roads where no roads were before, which is a problem that happened behind my house just recently. The 6-pole span I'm talking about, they're well aware of it. They've constructed a road. The road was never there before. I've never had a problem before. They've changed the terrain, they've dug, they've used my material to build their road. They've left me holding the responsibility of how do I take care of this? 29 poles is a lot of maintenance on my part to take care of when I can't get somebody during an emergency and there might be runoff, erosion. I can't access my property anymore because it's washed out my access roads. Who do I contact? I'll leave it at that, but like I said, my deed is very specific on what their rights are that they can do for vegetation, and if they're constructing roads and going to be doing that much vegetation work, I don't want to be stuck with the maintenance. I don't want to be stuck with the problems. I don't want to be stuck making dozens of phone calls just to wait to get a response when something is happening that day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Would the company like to respond, and mostly in general terms? I understand that the company is in contact with this individual, and I'm sure one situation varies from one owner to the next, but would the company like to respond to, in general terms, to some of those questions and comments?
Good afternoon. I'm Joe Carroll, Carroll, and part of the project engagement team at National Grid. So in some of those concerns to Mr. Gamash's point, we have been in communication, and I know in terms of the road that he was mentioning was part of our soil boring efforts, and I'm going to connect with Mr. Gamash. I want to make sure that he received my voicemail, so we're willing to continue communicating and working. That's our goal, is to address the concerns as they come up and come up with a plan for how we move forward. But that's all I have right now.
What is the policy, just so I know, in terms of tree removal? Is it the policy of the company to leave the trees on the property, or if you can just speak in general terms?
Generally, for maintenance, we leave them on property. For construction projects, we do work with landowners that do want it removed or chipped, and we can usually accommodate that.
Great. So we have a couple other people who have signed up. Is George Lockwood here? Mr. Lockwood.
George Lockwood. Yes, Lockwood.
And can you tell us what town you're from?
I sent a list of 9 questions, and I was told I could ask one. So I'll limit that. When the voltage is increased to its full level, if ever, what is the effect on existing structures nearby? What, as far as internet goes, communications of other kinds, and specifically on wildlife? That we're in Leverett, it's a rural area, there's all sorts of wildlife, and there's stories about how increased voltage kind of creates a barrier which animals don't like to cross. Is there anybody who can address that?
Mr. Lockwood, you can ask more than one question. Mr. Lockwood, you may ask more than one question. You might
Yes, I asked two,
Just-
basically.
just, do you want to ask additional questions? And then we'll ask the company to respond?
Oh, okay, right. All right. We had one tower replaced on the right-of-way a couple years ago, and that was delivered by helicopter. And I was wondering if that would be the procedure in areas where access is not easy. The terrain is pretty steep at our property and nearby. Also, is it necessary to work on the access roads we just had a bridge replaced, and the road through the woods is still there. It was built to accommodate heavy equipment used to transport stone, sand, all the equipment used to build a bridge. And it's still there, and currently they're going to, they being the state, restore it to its previous condition, which seems like a waste of money. And we'd like to have it remain the same. It's perfectly adequate for access, which the utilities have used to get on the high tension lines in the past. They could use it now. Is there any possibility of just not doing unnecessary work? And my eyes aren't that good, and I couldn't see from the slides the difference in the height of the towers. How much more visible are the towers, new towers, compared to the old ones, or the existing ones? And if you start, if you start the project in 2029, how long does it take to get to Leverett? And how long, really the question is, how long does it take to complete a section? In other words, how long is our lives disrupted by the construction equipment? And just a general question. Our provider now for electricity is Eversource, and all this discussion and work is National Grid. Is there some connection? I mean, are we going to benefit from this increased service as a Eversource customer?
Thank you, Mr. Lockwood.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Would the company like to respond to those questions?
As far as the eventual operation of the line at 115 kV versus 69 kV, you'd asked about impact on internet and other utilities. We don't anticipate that would have any effect on that. As far as wildlife and biological life, I'd have to see about somebody else on our team might have some answers to that. Helicopters, I don't believe at this point we're planning to use any helicopters for it, but we're still working on the the construction methodology of how we plan to do stuff. So we haven't completely ruled it out, but at this point, that's not our primary approach we're planning. Structure height, I think you asked about. Over the span of the project, structure heights are going to increase by about 5 feet to 25 feet, I believe is the maximum height increase along the length of the project anywhere.
Parallel question to that is,
Mr. Lockwood, can you speak into the mic?
in that height question, or your answer really, will it be necessary to cut down more trees? Does the width stay the same and the height stay the same that has to be cleared?
The height actually doesn't require more clearing of trees. The height is kind of somewhat independent from the width that's needed. There's a marginal effect there where by the wires being taller and further off the ground, that gives a little more distance for trees that may fall. They have a little more room to potentially fall and not hit the lines. So in a marginal case, it could actually somewhat reduce the likelihood of a tree falling into the line. Yeah. Do you mind if I just go look over Kathy's shoulder for a second and see if there's any other points I missed answering you? As far as your question about how long construction activities will be in a given section, construction is definitely going to be somewhat intermittent along the way. It won't all be in one continuous stretch. We'd come through, do the access work to get ready to do that. That might take, depending on how much rock there is and what's required to do that, that could be somewhat variable in how long that would take. In a small area, it could be, ballpark maybe a couple of weeks at most. For drilling the foundation, similarly, that could be somewhere from a couple of days to a week and a half, depending on how extensive the rock is. Once the concrete's been set and poured and cured for 2 to 4 weeks, we'd come back again and set the structures. That's usually 1 to 2 days. And then pulling wire, usually we assume about a mile per week. So over the course of the week, the pullers would be set up over any given stretch, so somewhere in that ballpark. But that wouldn't necessarily be continuous. There could be breaks between those different activities. The big one that comes to mind is while the concrete's curing for the foundation, we wouldn't be sitting there doing other activities while we wait for that to cure before we come back and set the pole.
You start at one end and you don't. All the activity is starting at the beginning and goes to the other end. You don't do portions. How do I phrase it? You don't, you work continuously from one end to the other and not breaking it up into individual parts.
From the way I think broadly speaking, we would start at one end and kind of work our way to the other end, do one bit of line on one side and then switch to the other side in that same section. But no, it wouldn't be very efficient of us to kind of do a bit here and jump a few miles ahead and come back. We wouldn't be approaching it kind of like that. I think broadly speaking, we'd be starting at one end and kind of working our way to the other end. Did that cover anything, or did I miss anything else there? Thank you.
There's also the Eversource question.
Oh, that one, as far as the line goes, it's part of the regional transmission system. It carries power flow east to west for the overall New England transmission system. So it does provide power and participate in the network of transmission that serves all New England customers. National Grid, Eversource, Central Maine Power, it's all connected and kind of operates as one uniform transmission system for all of New England.
Thank you. Jeff Tenorowitz.
Jeff Tenorowitz, TENEROWICZ, 14 Hoosick Road, particularly structure 560. Most of my questions are already answered. As far as the right-of-way, when you say it's going to stay the same at 69 kV, at some point it's going to go to 115 kV, and at that point, does it now change the width of the right-of-way as it does minimum approach distances? That could affect what could be done on the property, on the land, buildings, equipment operating under it. Then another, and I'll use my structure as an example versus other people who would be in the same boat. You can't build 20 feet behind. It's on the edge of the property. You build 20 feet in front and 6 feet to the left, you're now in the middle of usable property that will no longer be usable. What's the company willing to do about that? Is there any purchasing of land, compensating for the loss in value of the property, or going up in 5 feet, our span's going to change and the tower might disappear completely? With height, you get the longer spans. I guess that's the only questions I got right now.
So the first question about eventual operation at 115, we're designing the line for 115 kV clearances, so should have sufficient clearance to ground to blow out to the edge of the right-of-way to meet all the requirements for 115 kV operation eventually. MEDs should be available for all that sort of stuff. The specifics about where poles are moving, I don't know that particular pole off the top of my head, but we could get together with some of our engineering team and see where we're looking to move poles specifically and answer some of those questions for you. What was it, the third part of your question there was about? Yeah.
Mr. Tenero, would you come back to the mic?
Sorry.
If the towers go up, 5 to, would you say, 25 feet, now you can have longer spans. That could mean towers are going to be eliminated or moved farther apart. Is any of that going to happen?
Gotcha.
Yep.
For the most part, no. There are a couple of limited spots where we've got a tower in a really tight spot with a lot of stuff around it where we're trying to eliminate that, but for the most part, the towers are going to stay mostly a one-for-one replacement. Where there's an existing tower, we'll put a new one kind of right near where it is. We do have some flexibility to move stuff a little ahead, a little back. Angles get a little more complicated, but on the tangents, we have some flexibility to move that around a bit. Yep.
Tim Hilde, or I probably have that wrong. Oh, Mr. Hilche.
Tim Hilche, I'm a Deerfield Select Board member. Thank you for coming to Deerfield and sharing this information with us. I just want to confirm, and I think that the answer is yes, that as the project progresses, you will come before local boards to address issues like when you're going to be accessing, when you're going to be using chemicals to clear or cut, and that you will, on an individual basis perhaps, address issues like the previous speaker raised with placement of poles. I know in past smaller projects, you've been willing to remove a pole or transfer it to the other side of a road existing to address individual concerns, and that I assume will continue to be the practice as the project goes forward. You have my card, do you need?
Yep, Joe Carroll again. So in terms of communication and outreach, we're going to remain committed to that throughout the life of the project. We've presented to select boards along the route, and we've shared the project presentations. I want to connect to you again just to make sure we have the correct contact info, but that is something we remain committed, and I encourage individual landowners, if you have questions or would like to have more of a one-on-one meeting on your property, to reach out to us through the project website. That can be through the email or the hotline. We're going to work with you, we're going to communicate with you, and we're happy to meet you and answer any questions that you do have, but we will continue with municipal briefings, and project open houses in the future.
And I will open it up to other people in just a moment. Could the company respond to the question earlier from Mr. De Chiara regarding plans to minimize and avoid silt accumulation in the Quabbin?
Good afternoon. My name is Mike Tyrrell, Tyrrell, the environmental lead for National Grid for the project. I think that that's a holistic question that we take very seriously. And already, whether it's through the siting board or in our maybe more detailed MEPA filing, we've addressed stormwater. We've addressed some of that in our civil design of access roads. We've also coordinated quite closely and continue to coordinate with DCR, Quabbin, around our construction methodology within the watershed. But I think our primary methodology for managing stormwater during construction is through the use of erosion controls, full-time environmental compliance by our team, as well as obviously compliance with the permit conditions. We've got a long way to go on our permitting process, and that's where we really get into the details. But I think from an access standpoint, which we agree is very serious and one that we are looking at and have spent quite a bit of time already in the field to look at access, is how do we minimize our impacts currently, whether that's through the use of best management practices like swamp mats or construction mats, but then more importantly for access roads in right-of-way that require more substantial improvements, it's bringing in a civil contractor to look at stormwater design and to embed that into the design so that the contractor who's building the roads understands what the obligation is, and then we have a methodology to maintain that going forward.
Thank you. Would you come up, introduce yourself, please?
Hi, my name is Michael Sokolovsky. That's Sokolovsky. I'm from Shelburne. I just wanted to ask a clarifying question about the size of the row. So I was told by Ryan Stoke, who's a senior real estate representative for National Grid, that if the lines were to go to carrying 115 kilovolts, that the size of the right-of-way would have to increase to 150 feet. So I don't know if he misspoke. I don't think he's an engineer or a safety representative for National Grid and what the requirements are, but I'd like clarification on that. Someone earlier asked if the size of the right-of-way would have to increase. I think the answer that was provided was that, well, I'm not sure what the answer was. It wasn't very clear if the actual size of the right-of-way would have to increase. My primary concern is that that would actually put my neighbor's living room, another neighbor's living room, my leach field, my workspace, a detached building, in a right-of-way if it needed to be increased. And a lot of our deeds, there was no specific right-of-way width listed in the early 1900s. So that's a little bit concerning, and I'm wondering if National Grid has a plan to deal with that situation. Are those buildings going to be grandfathered in? Is my leach field going to have to be moved? Are they going to cover the expense of that? So what is the new right-of-way actually going to be if the line does go to 115 kilovolts? And if there is no plan to actually make the line go to 115 kilovolts, why not create smaller towers that just accommodate the original 69 kilovolts? Thank you.
Thank you.
Broadly speaking, through our analysis of the line and how it would how the wires would blow out and everything along those lines, the 115 kV design does fit within the existing rights-of-way for the vast majority of the line. So no, I don't think we would need to, in a broad sense, widen the entire right-of-way to accommodate that now. So I think that information you had previously gotten was incorrect. Sorry about that.
So, and is there what is the approximate width of the right-of-way right now?
I think it varies from 80 to 200 feet in some places. It's not consistent along the whole length.
This is Rahul Shah with Project Management. Yeah, so for building at 115 kV standards, the current standard is 125 feet width of the right-of-way. In many cases, we do have that. In some cases, like Ken said, there is 80 feet, but we are looking at this at different situations because, for instance, there are some locations where there is an angle and it's not possible to maintain 120 feet. But in most cases, it is 125. If it's shorter than that, we have identified some locations, probably like a dozen or so right now, that we are working with those landowners to acquire additional easements or right away with expansion if needed. But in your case, if you haven't been contacted, it's not going to be the case.
So I'd just like to clarify something he said. 125 feet is what we would design for a greenfield design for a new right-of-way, a new line. It's not required in every case just because it's operated at 115. Just to reiterate what I said before, the line as it's designed to operate at 115 kV fits with all required clearances within the existing right-of-way.
Thank you. Then we have a speaker on Zoom, Aaron Rust.
All right.
Okay. We'll get you.
All right. Well, Aaron is rejoining us. I'd like to let our virtual people know that if you would like to make a comment, please raise your hand by clicking on the raise hand icon in your Zoom control panel. And if you were calling in by phone, if you hit *9, your hand will raise. Aaron, yes.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Aaron Rust, R-U-S-T, and I am with NewGen. We own and operate a solar field that is connected to the E5 line at the Harrington Street substation, which I think on your thing I saw is 2234. I just wanted to say that I found the website to be really helpful, and I thought it did a great job of laying out the project and giving us a really good overview. So, I really appreciated that information. I guess my questions are, I would like to request that National Grid study the substation to be able to operate on both the F5 and the F5 and the E5 and the F6 lines. Sorry, I mixed those up, right? Just to make sure that as they are swapping the lines, we're able to continue our generation. And I know that those things need to be studied in advance so that it isn't a surprise to anyone as they come online. And then also, I realize they're saying that there's no current plan to operate at 115 kV. But our site is built to operate at 69 kV. So if they do change to 115, we will need new equipment and new transformers to be able to generate at that new voltage. So I'm curious if National Grid is planning to, and we will be looking to National Grid to help us upgrade our system to be able to generate at the 115 kV. And then I think finally, I'm curious about the fiber optics or that they'll be installing the OPGW wire, and if that's going to be dedicated just to the utility or if that is going to be a line that other entities are going to be able to tap into.
To your point about eventual 115 operation, just to reiterate that, yes, we don't have any concrete plan or timeline to do that. Really, no upgrades for the substations are needed right now. The lines are going to continue to operate at 69 kV. Should the operation be changed to 115 kV in the future, yeah, that's going to require significant upgrades at every substation along the line to match that voltage there. The new OPGW we're installing will be for utility use. The existing OPGW that's on the western part is actually used by a third-party telecommunications company for general telecom purposes. We have to coordinate with them for fiber outages on that, and I think there's quite a lot of critical communications. So fiber outages are limited duration in their availability for what's existing there. The new fiber that's going in that we're all putting in would be for National Grid's internal use for transmitting and distributing electricity.
I guess, can anyone speak to whether or not you will be able to study our site to generate on both of the transmission lines?
I think we can probably take that back and ask the question to our transmission planning team. If I remember correctly, you do have a switch on the E5 on either side of your tap point.
I think that's correct.
So you should be able, I believe you should be able to generate, we'd take outages on one side of the tap point at a time, primarily, so you should still be able to generate even if there's an outage on one side versus the other.
Great. Thank you all very much. I really did find this super helpful, so great job, everybody.
Great, thank you. Would the gentleman in the front come up, please?
William Green, Shelburne, Massachusetts. No E at the end. I just jotted down a few questions while I was listening. One was, you talked about the direction of construction. It'd start one end and finish in the other. I'm curious which direction it's going to go, because I actually have property at the actual end, the terminus in Shelburne, right across the street from Deerfield 4. So I'm curious which direction it's going to go and when we can expect to see people on our property. My property does have poles on it, so that's my next question. The ROW has been stated as 125, but I have a map of my deed right here, and my deed saying that it's actually 20 feet off of the outside poles. So there's a double line of poles through my property. I own both sides, right to the other side of the pole. And your right-of-way goes 20 feet to the south, and then it goes 20 feet to the north onto my property. And then there's a 30-foot, right-of-way or a offset for building. But anyway, it's right now 20 feet, it'd be much bigger if what you're talking about. So nowhere close. And I have all kinds of plans for that property. I have a solar system designed. I have a expansion of my building. So I'm curious about this right-of-way issue. And then the final question is regarding substations. It was alluded to that substations won't be needing any upgrading, but we are aware in our area that the substation Deerfield 4 is being proposed to be upgraded pretty seriously. It's right on the Deerfield River. It was flooded during the Irene event. It's a pretty serious situation there. It's an old, dilapidated substation. It's pinned in by the road, Route 112, which is a state road. It has no proper right-of-way or offsets right now. There's a private home to one side, a private business to the other. I think the people who have property there are very curious how that substation will be upgraded to be able to handle even this upgrade, but possibly the much bigger upgrade in the future, and what the time scale would that be?
To your existing property, we're going to stay within the existing rights that we have to the extent that we can. If we need additional rights beyond that, we would obviously come back to you and negotiate a new deed for that. That's how we would handle that. We don't need to do anything. We don't have anything on paper that says we need to do something beyond what we have for our rights right now. There is the Deerfield 4 substation project that's looked at a number of different options. Upgrading in place, relocating it to a new site. There have been a number of options that have been kicked around for that. That is a separate project from this. The upgrades that we're doing for the line replacement project, the line improvement, does not require any changes at Deerfield 4. But yes, that is another project with another project team that's moving in parallel to address the condition issues at Deerfield 4. Yes.
The direction of construction.
Oh, yes, sorry. And yes, we're going to start at the Millbury end and work our way west. So Shelburne is going to be towards the end of that, towards that 2035 end of the project construction.
Just one more question. So you're talking about the Shelburne, the Deerfield 4 upgrade. is it, obviously it's a project in process. Do they want to have that done by 2035? Is that a goal? To have that done by the time the work has come up to join into it? Because it seems like it would make some sense. And you've got a whole nother transfer station there with Western Mass Electric. It's a lot of infrastructure. I would think you'd do it at the same time.
I believe they're on unlinked schedules. There are a lot of unknowns still associated with that substation project. We don't even concretely have a site that we have control over and that we know is going to work. So we're proceeding with this project to get it done, and then when that is sorted out, we'll connect it up to that new, either upgraded in place or new relocated project, wherever that might be in the future.
Thank you. Are there any other people who would like to speak? Mr. Gamache?
If there's a chance, yes.
Yes, that's fine.
I believe I did.
Okay.
Reintroduce yourself. Actually, I will. James Gamache, Shelburne Falls, Mass., 440 Mohawk Trail. I believe a couple of my questions really weren't answered, so I'll just see if I can't get a follow-up on this. As I mentioned, a road was constructed behind my house, and the materials to construct the road were utilized off of my property. Is this standard practice to utilize the materials on people's property to build the road?
Could this company speak to their standard practice about using materials from the property?
I'm not familiar with the specifics of your property or where the materials came from.
The materials came off the right-of-way itself, which is on my property.
Yeah. Generally speaking, I think that no, that's not the typical practice.
I guess
Mr. Gamache, what kind of materials were there?
The actual materials that were on the mountain itself. They dug into the bank to take the material from the upper side of the bank to move it to the other side to, you know what I mean, the bank was like this. They dug this side to add to this side to make a flat road and used all the materials that were on my property, moved stones, like I mentioned. They actually came in with chippers and chipped up some of the ledge and used the ledge for fill material also, and disturbed quite a bunch of the springs that were up there in the process of doing that, which is yet to be seen what the end result will that be over time. But I'm just curious as to, was there a permitting process involved in all of that, or did you just decide to come in and put a road behind my house for 6 poles?
You're welcome to respond.
Just to clarify my earlier answer as far as using materials, I would draw a distinction between using materials that were in the right-of-way versus off the right-of-way. I guess the distinction I was trying to make. I'm not sure what the permitting requirements for the soil boring program were. I'm going to defer that to some of the other members of our team if I can.
Yeah, Mike Tyrell, lead environmental with National Grid. I think the follow-up question about permitting, this was soil boring related. We did obtain or provide notification to the Conservation Commission again for wetlands related permitting up on Mr. Gamache's property behind. It's not an environmental trigger for permitting requirements, so there were no permitting issues required up on the back of his property. But I agree, we are working quite, I think, actively with Mr. Gamache to try to resolve the issue on the access and to improve on the condition it was left in. So from a permitting standpoint, though, we did provide notice to the commission as required.
Again, to touch on that again, like I mentioned, I don't want to be stuck being the maintenance man to this, which I am now. I will remind the grid that you have a right-of-way through my property. I am the owner. You are the guest. It's not the other way around. I get a lot of strong arm from the grid as it's our right to do this. which I agree, they do have certain rights. It is a right-of-way. It has been signed over 100 years ago. But it's still my property. It's still my backyard that this is all taking place of, and I'm really not happy with it. Still haven't got an answer on what happens with the bathroom problem here, which is an ongoing problem. And like I said, 29 poles is a long span, which is, when you're working, I've been in a power company myself, which is out in the woods. Not out in the woods, it's in my backyard. I have a huge backyard, by the way, by 29 poles, several hundred acres. And also on that, like I said, my deed does have specific clauses as to what can be done, what can't be done with vegetation. But a question came up just recently. There's a developed section of the right-of-way and an undeveloped section of the right-of-way, which the grid retains rights to in case they want to widen it, whatever. Is there intentions to widen it to the maximum potential that it could be, or is it going to stay within the, so to say, cleared strip now? Because they do maintain another 25 feet on either side of mine that they could, which is forested, could access should they need to, which again pertains to my problem of who's going to take care of all this timber that comes down should that happen if they want to expand the width of this. Anybody?
Joe Carroll again with the project engagement team. I want to touch on the first part regarding the bathrooms. So we will be providing porta potties where appropriate, but we also, as a best management practice, meet with all the contractors. We identify options that they can use for the restroom. We don't tolerate contractors or crew personnel using the property to use the restrooms. We take that very seriously. We encourage the residents, the abutters, if they see something, to reach us so that we can follow up with the contractor. It's something that we'll provide, or provide options to the contractor where they can go so they're not using the woods as their restroom.
Mr. Carroll, could you just repeat the phone number that a person would call if they had, a kind of a private concern? Maybe a name and a phone number?
Yep. So the website is cma to wmaenergy.com, and there is a contact us section. So the phone number is 888-431-3536, and the project email is info@cmatowmaenergy.com.
And with that number that you gave, that is for, what department is that?
So that will reach our project engagement team. So that will be a voicemail that you can receive, that we will receive. It will come to myself or a member of the outreach team, where we can circulate questions or comments back to the project team. All that we ask is that you leave a contact information that we can get back to you, so either a cell phone or email, and your property address. And there, in addition, you can leave your name, and if you want to request your preferred method of contact, there's an option for that, and any languages if you are looking for something to be translated.
Thank you.
Did you need my name again? As far as the potential for, there's several properties in that area that have deeds with similar language about leaving cordwood. We are aware of those, and those we are looking to follow what's in the deed. On properties that have that, we follow what's in the deed. If you didn't want the logs left or the brush left, we can chip it and remove it. So we typically will work with landowners that don't want that much volume left. We can, in fact, chip and remove and then leave the logs as per deeds that have that. That
hasn't been past practice.
So that is what our project is going to be doing. Is that?
It kind of handles some of that. My last and follow-up question is still the right-of-way. The right-of-way itself. As I mentioned, they've developed I've put a road on between 6 towers now. That still has the remainder of 23 towers to go. That's a lot of road to construct through my property, my backyard. My questions are still valid to be asked. Am I going to end up supplying the material to fix this? To build these roads, to maintain these roads, to maintain them after they're gone? I have access roads there for firewood, right-of-ways to get to other properties through that, to cross them. It's a huge question to ask, I agree, but the span of 29 poles with new roads, a new road constructed where there was none before, is a lot of hazards, a lot of environmental work, a lot of headaches that are going to be imposed on me. Who's going to police this to keep the public out after there's an access road? Once there's an access road, I will remind the grid again that it's the grid's right-of-way. It's not public access. It's not for anybody to go on for a walk, or take a four-wheeler down, take a Jeep down, or have an excursion on, which I am left holding open as to maintaining and monitoring my property as to who's going to be on this now, because when these new roads come in to get access through other people's property, it's ungated. It's an invitation for other people to go, hey, where does that go now? It's a right-of-way. Well, it's people, they got to understand that it's not a public access. It's a contract between me and the grid that was established years ago. I hate to bring up how a right-of-way works, but the public in general doesn't know. They think, oh, it's the right-of-way. That means it's open to anybody up there. I've already had problems with four-wheelers, with Jeeps, with trespassers, with damage being done. It's a hell of a road to go down when you're talking that kind of distance, where there's trails up above that do have access for walking, and people see that now there's a new road. But like I said, I don't want to supply the materials for this. I don't want to supply my maintenance and my labor to do the upkeep afterwards. I don't want to be left holding the bag when there's a storm coming and I can't get out of my driveway, or all this material ends up in my yard, in my ponds, in my drainage systems. I'm asking for some help here. There's a tremendous amount of area. Like I said, I'm the largest pole owner on the whole project, and I'm getting stuck with a lot of trouble.
Well, let's give the company a chance to respond to that. Thank you.
So I'll try to answer both, I believe, what the questions are. In terms of unauthorized access, we can certainly have conversations about potential opportunities to prevent unauthorized access into the right-of-way. And in terms of future maintenance, that would all be directed to National Grid using the various numbers that are on the National Grid website when this project is complete. But throughout the life of this project, the outreach team is going to be available to be reached, and we will continue to work with you. But in terms of unauthorized access, we can certainly have conversations about where there are potential opportunities to assist in preventing unauthorized access.
Can the company speak to what its position is just with respect to whose responsibility it is to limit unauthorized access? Does the company take it that it's its position to do that, or does it believe that it's the landowner's responsibility?
Our typical practice for where access intersects public ways like roads and stuff is to gate that access, and any additional measures beyond that to avoid the public bypassing those gates and everything. That's something that's usually a site-by-site specific thing to be worked out with the landowner.
Okay. And then Mr. Gamache had mentioned earlier about the mud. I thought that was one of your concerns, that the road might expose mud. That
If I may, just one last time. Yeah. Like I said, I don't want to be the maintenance person here. If a storm comes, a flood comes, a hurricane comes, 7 inches of water, whatever, all of this stuff starts to erode and wash down into my property. The grid is busy that day, don't forget. You have outages, you have customers out, thousands of people out. All this is happening the same day where damage is being done to my property because of runoff. Excessive, new roads constructed, new materials disturbed, banks that are exposed where they've never been before. All this is going to come down. The power line is, to give you an idea, is probably twice the height of this building behind my house at a probably 45-degree angle. It's all going to come down fast. I'm going to be stuck that day, that minute, that hour. I'll call the grid 50 times. They won't be there for days, maybe weeks. I'm not a priority. They can take care of it afterwards. What happens during? Like I said, I'm getting stuck being the maintenance man here, and well, damn it, I'm not on the payroll, and I'm stuck.
Can we get a response?
I'm stuck with the bill of my time and labor plus anybody I might have to come in to correct this situation immediately, not days or weeks later. Again, I'm looking for help here.
I guess all I can say to that right now is the permanent road for the project that's being designed is being engineered with stormwater controls to manage runoff to the extent possible. Extreme weather events stuff happens that may exceed the capacity of those controls to manage. That's certainly a possibility, and we're constructing this access road to be able to use it in the future. If it's washing out, that's not really beneficial to us either. We don't want that to happen either.
Okay.
As far as an emergency response, our transmission line crews may need to get out on this right away in an emergency to restore a broken pole or an outage on the line. We don't really have an emergency response capability for civil construction, so getting heavy equipment out to address that sort of stuff is typically something that can take some time to make that happen. That is true.
Okay. And I'm not expecting that we're going to figure out everything out right now, but I appreciate you bringing up your concerns. Mr. Carroll, can you tell us if somebody calls that hotline, how long would they typically have to wait for a response?
Yeah, so our goal is to typically respond within 48 to 72 hours, and that can vary with a direct answer to the question or just confirming that we received it, clarifying any comments that they have so we can bring it back to the project team. There are some questions that I may not be able to answer or members of the outreach team right on the spot, so we want to be able to bring them back, but we typically respond within 48 to 72 hours, not necessarily including weekends or company holidays.
Yes, thank you. Do we have somebody on Zoom? Craig De La Pena, please.
All right, Craig, you should be able to turn on your camera and unmute yourself.
Go ahead, and you're muted.
Still muted, yeah.
How's that?
There you go.
Okay, thank you. My name is Craig De La Pena. I live at number 62 Chestnut Street in Florence, Massachusetts. My house sits 8 feet from a National Grid-owned former steam railroad corridor. I'm in the background of all the rail-to-trail development in the Northeast United States, and I'm a fan of National Grid. I'm a customer of them. Sometimes I have a full-blown solar array, so my use of National Grid is diminished. However, National Grid is the second largest landowner of dead steam railroad corridor in New England. And they've been involved in not only their own regular power line right-of-way maintenance projects, but as I said, they own second only to the MBTA and dead steam railroad corridor ownership in Massachusetts. They were a critical part back over 10 years ago, National Grid, to update and improve the recreational use statutes in Massachusetts to be contemporary. And I'd be happy to send them along to your panel here. But it was National Grid's real estate department that made it possible for the rec use statutes to be improved. And they were at the bill signing ceremony in 2009 with Governor Deval Patrick, where the rec use statutes were changed to allow for public access onto not only former steam railroad corridor, but also utility-owned corridors. If the owner of the land agreed, then there would have no liability. That is the second change of recreational use statutes in the United States. 4 years earlier, it was done in Maine, calling out both railroads and utilities of owners of land that, if opened, would have no recreation, would have no liability purpose or hazards. I just want to congratulate National Grid here today for taking up this project to update the grid. We see what happens in other states around the United States where failure to upgrade the infrastructure leads to bad things happening. And thank you for taking this on. I did want to also mention that National Grid shows up at every ribbon cutting of a rail trail on their owned land today. And as I said, I reassemble corridor, put Humpty Dumpty back together again. And the longest rail to trail project in New England goes from Boston to Northampton. And parts of that are owned by National Grid, and they are helpful. Thank you for your hard work, and I'll be testifying at other meetings along the way here. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. De Chiara?
You don't need me to identify myself again? Okay. Oh, just an observation, sort of returning back to my understanding about conditions. I think going into this, it was clear that these projects are complex. I think after the testimony, it's clear that these are complex. And so, based on my experience on the planning board, we've put in conditions to have a third-party monitor paid by the applicant. And I think that might be something for EFSB to consider, both for the three phases that I see are important: pre-construction, construction, and post-construction. There's all issues that have arisen just in this discussion. And at the state level, I think the precedent would be with the new DOER smart regs. They put in third-party monitoring as well for the same reason. So I think, it's good that National Grid has people and expertise that are there, but nonetheless, they are the applicant. And I think the EFSB representing the public interest, having a third party that responds to to you when what you're looking for is probably a productive thing to consider.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Jeff Tenerowitz, TENEROWICZ. So I'm just trying to clarify here. I'm the distribution side of National Grid. You have an aerial right-of-way, and then you have permission for towers or structures with a radius if you have to replace them. If I have green fields and no road, when the project is done, it should be green fields and no road again. Yeah, I don't know if the answer is because he's got almost a mile of right-of-way. So if it was say that was a hayfield for a mile, you're saying that when the project's done, is that going to stay a road? You have rights to maintain it if something goes wrong, but really you just made his property useless for no reason, because you're going to maintain it, every 10 years, 15 years, change out glass, wire, all of that stuff. So in regards to his property, if it was a perfectly untouched field before the project started, shouldn't it be a perfectly untouched field when the project's complete?
What the restoration at the end of the project is going to look like will depend on the underlying land use. If it's green, somebody's front yard, lawn, yeah, we put that back the way it was. In a lot of places where it's more undeveloped, then yeah, the road would stay long-term for future access for structure maintenance, veg management, emergency access. Wetlands, the access will be temporary, that'll be removed. Ag fields, similarly, but it'll depend on what the underlying condition is of what the use is.
So right now I have a beautiful field. I want to sell that acre as a building lot to someone. It's now no longer worth anything because there's a gravel road. What's the company gonna do? You basically just destroyed, now I'm paying taxes like that road's not there, and now I have a destroyed field and my taxes keep going up. You gonna work with towns to lower the tax rates on the property that just got taken? I agree with you. I'd have a lawyer.
So, I mean, if the company wants to respond, that's fine.
It's essentially a land grab of useful property for a road.
So this hearing, you know, the purpose is to bring up these types of concerns and give us input that will guide us through this proceeding and guide us in questions that we ask. But we sitting up here are not a tribunal, so I'm not going to comment upon the legalities and the obligations. And also the other part of the hearing is just to hear what the company's plans are. And so what I heard from the company in that regard is that it depends on the condition of the property. And in some cases, they would restore the property, and in some cases, they won't. But so that's useful information that landowners can use.
I've
Yes.
I've gotten these in the mail. No one has actually reached out to me. I just find people walking the property and I ask questions that way. So how do I get in touch to set up a meeting with somebody? Through that website?
Well, I believe so. I mean,
Or can I call
Mr.
it
Carroll
phone?
can respond to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so in terms of getting in touch, you can reach out to the project website, and we will touch base with you when this meeting concludes, get some contact information, and we can schedule a time to meet at your property and converse.
Mr. Gamache.
If I may just have one more moment of your time, sorry. I just heard mentioned that if it's somebody's backyard, we take care of it. Where it's out in the woods, it's kind of up to grabs. I just want to reiterate one thing absolutely positive here. 29 poles is my backyard. I consider it the same as you would your front yard, regardless of size. That's my backyard you're talking about. 29 poles, that's my backyard. I walk it every day. Some of the people in the audience know that. I'm well aware of what happens to my property on a daily basis. So don't be telling me that a backyard is different than out back. 325 acres is my backyard. 29 poles is my backyard. And after the job, I would please expect a end of the job walkthrough to make sure it would meet my standards after it's done, so I could have some kind of input on what is left that I apparently will be maintaining. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Gamache. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. We don't have anyone else online, right? So again, we welcome your additional input and writing comments, written comments, and requests to participate either as an intervener or a limited participant are due 2 weeks from today. Again, my email address, your best option is to pick up the notice, but my email address is daniel.w.kelleher@mass.gov. Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon. Off the record.